on this episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Really strong is our weakest link, and we do not know what we do not know, right? A lot of times, and it's always those two things that can hurt you the most. So you have to kind of shore up all these key areas of your life if you're really going to be the best person you can be.
Stay tuned following the interview for On the Couch and Off the Rocker, our special guest's psycho-silly analysis by Art Lab's own head cabbager, Dr. Ima Freudnot.
Welcome to Therapy Bites Art Lab, where Dr. Heath and his special guests share real-life stories of helping and healing, fresh from the actual therapy couch, while taking a bite out of common counseling missteps and misconceptions. And now, here's Heath and the T-Ball team.
Hey T-Ballers, welcome back to another great episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab. And we have in the Art Lab for an episode we call Finding Meaning, the Psychology of True Success. There are different kinds of success. Andrew was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1966 to parents fighting for the civil rights movement. His life is a combination of the Rocky story, Think and Grow Rich, and the Celestine Prophecy on steroids. Oh boy. He has been through so many harrowing and intense situations that those stories alone could literally fill volumes. He has overcome dyslexia and a load of other learning disabilities, being legally blind in one eye and being bullied, but moved onward and upward to become a school leader, an athlete, and gain university degrees in speech and communications, religious studies, man, that's my jam there, and Eastern philosophy. He has lived overseas, traveled the world. He's a martial artist, a yoga, and what many call a health and fitness fanatic. Wow, that's getting pretty close to home. He is a serial entrepreneur and has run successful strategic consulting firm for over 20 years. He's a creator of the Seventh Foundation, the One Show, the One Tribe, One Movement. I'm sensing a theme here. That's cool. And One Party. And he's the best-selling author of The Way, 7 Revolutionary Steps to Live a Meaningful Life and Making a Real Difference in the World.
Stay in the stands at the end of the interview, T-Ballers, and witness our special guest slug a bite-sized brain ball with your name all over it, clean out of the art lab.
Andrew, man, I'm excited to have you on the show today. Thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Let's jump right in. Share a little bit about your story for our listeners today. How'd you get to where you are?
Hey, thank you, Dr. Heath, for having me on your show. Thanks for everybody for listening. Growing up, a lot of times when I go on shows, people want to know about how I overcame these difficulties, and, you know, being bullied relentlessly and all the rest of the traumas led me down a very dark path. And I would say there's 2 really keys to it as a kid. One is, thank God I had my mom. I don't believe anybody really makes it in life, especially as a kid, without some type of advocate believing in you and showing you what the truth is inside is different necessarily than the world. And the other thing is I found kind of this inner light within myself. I have a lot of spiritual connections. And I think between the realizing my inner light and my spirit was different than the world was reflecting is what helped me kind of get through that beginning stage. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. But it strikes me, your journey started when you were very young. And I found that the tendency, some folks, they just give up and they kind of settle and they think, well, you know, this is what my life is going to be. For me, you and I were talking on the pre-show. We were juggling our degrees back and forth. And hey, you know, you pay so much money for those darn things, you got to get some mileage out of them. You know, it's got to be more than all the certificates hanging on the wall. But we're talking in the pre-show, and my journey was in high school. Really, it started before high school. I came to the conclusion that this is what my life's going to be. And it wasn't going to be bad. I'd had some trauma, some tragedy, lost my mom at a young age, lost her home and some things like that. But I had kind of come to some conclusions about what I was capable of. And I think that those limiting beliefs really held me back. And the thing that got me over the hump, I'm not quite sure what it was. I think it was my mother-in-law who, I don't know, it just seemed like she believed in me. She She just showed me what was possible, some things I didn't know was possible. I kind of jokingly say that I kind of sunk to my own level of expectations. And since I didn't think I was capable of more, I thought, well, to get out of here, which is school, I need to have a 2.0. And I just sunk to that level. So that's kind of what I attained to. And I was actually very disappointed that I graduated with a 2.7 GPA, because my calculation was I put in 0.7 points of too much work. I could have studied less and gotten the same thing. And then I had this wonderful lady who showed me, you can go to college and you can do some big things. My question for you is, what were, and you mentioned some of them being your mother, but what were some actual thoughts, some actual beliefs that you wound up adopting that put you on a trajectory of success?
We talked about this a little bit, like you said. We have degrees in religious studies. My degrees in religious studies and philosophy came out of a love for the subject in a way that I've just been into it my whole life. And when I was a kid, okay, picture this kid. He's got a patch over one eye. I'm seeing 2200 vision out of my eye that's just legally blind. I can barely see. Like, it's literally like looking at a cotton. I have dyslexia, other learning disabilities. I can't spell. I can't read. I can't do math. I can't catch a ball to save my life. I bullied relentlessly. Even teachers telling me I'm too stupid to learn anything. I should just get out of the class and go get a job. This is like in 4th grade. Thrown in trash cans, stripped down naked, almost drowned. I mean, horrible, horrible things happening. I remember one day I always get up and I always have a lot of energy. I'm a really happy kid. Like cleaning things and planting plants and all these kind of things when I was a kid. And I remember waking up one day and laying down and going, God, I don't want to go to school because it's so unbelievably traumatic. And I remember pretending I was sick and just to get out of school for months. I was like, and thinking about when you were in about 4th grade, I think is when I learned I could kill myself. And I didn't really have to be here anymore. And while all this was going on, though, there was this other inner dialogue going on. I couldn't see very well, but I had a great imagination. While I have all these learning disabilities, I found out later I was actually tested out to be a genius in abstract thinking in these other areas, which is kind of typical for a lot of kids that have what we call learning disabilities. It's really just differences. Our minds work differently. We don't fit well in the cookie cutter approach to teaching, so it makes us look stupid. But if they just found a better way to teach us, we would do fine. But I had this inner dialogue going on in this very creative mind. And I don't know, you remember Casper the Ghost?
Oh, I love Casper.
Okay, Casper was like my best friend. Kimba the lion. Remember Kimba? I remember Kimba.
Kimba, where was Kimba from?
Kimba is a little white lion, had like no friends or whatever, running around in the forest and trying to find his way or whatever. Anyways, in my mind and in my dreams and things, these two characters played a big part in my childhood. And like I said, I had a lot of spiritual experiences as a kid and conversations with God in my dreams or whatever it may be, and Casper bringing me there and doing all these things. And I found, like I said, this light in me, and it never accepted what the world wanted me to be. And it was always, we're all great. You know what I mean? We all have wonderful potential. It's, if we're raised correctly, we have all these opportunities and facilities to realize this. It's great. But if you don't, it becomes a great challenge. And I think this is where I think we could do a lot better job, obviously, in our society, raising our kids. That's why I'm out here, spreading the word about the way and the one and that kind of thing. But this inner dialogue, this inner world that I created helped me get through all of this, because I realized that it's me inside this body, and it's my world that I create, and you don't necessarily know who I am or what it's about. And a lot of that came from my mom, honestly, because she kept telling me that every day I come home or whatever happened to me, that you are smart, you can do all of these things, just need to find the right way. And she really worked with me to help me through all of this. So I don't know, man. I think we all have this spark. I think that some of us, it gets shaded and compressed, like you said, to the point where you just don't believe in yourself anymore. And that's where everybody I've ever heard that actually makes it, like you have somebody, right, that's telling you the opposite. And it rings true with you, because we all know that we're good and can be good people and rise up and become something wonderful. And it doesn't mean that the path of everybody's life is the same. And that's why I call it the way. It's the human way to become great, is to find your diversity, right? To find your niche, your place that makes you thrive and happy and truly successful in life. And that's the idea. I think that, I think we get too caught up in this idea of what we're supposed to be, that society's telling us and programming us to be, instead of finding out our own way and how to really create the excellence from within, instead of having somebody tell you what you're supposed to do. And you know what I mean? I think that was the changing moment. And it did happen in sixth grade. And I believe, I don't know, I grew up to the point where all the bigger bullies left, right? In sixth grade, I'm as big as, I'm, pretty big guy. I'm 6'1", whatever. So the bullies weren't that much bigger than me. And I had a couple fights, won them both, and then nobody messed with me anymore. And I always was kind of a protector. I didn't like other kids being bullied. So that continued all the way through high school and college and everything. I had more fights than people can imagine. But all of this taught me a lesson. It's all of these virtues and best practices in life that can make people better people. And like I always say, we're only as strong as our weakest link, and we do not know what we do not know, right? A lot of times. And it's always those two things that can hurt you the most. So you have to kind of shore up all these key areas of your life if you're really going to be the best person you can be. And that kind of hit me when I was really young, because it was always that missing piece that I didn't know that always came back to bite me.
Well, and you're really speaking my language, because Casper, one of my favorite childhood characters, Casper the friendly ghost, but personally, that's how I saw myself. I think I really identify with Casper, because in my mind, I was a ghost. And in many cases, I wasn't noticed or recognized, and I really leaned into that. And I decided the best way to be safe is to be invisible. And I would try to be invisible, a ghost. And my best friends were books. And I just read and read and read and read, and just tried to keep to myself. And I think there's many moving parts and many ingredients, and I want to hear yours regarding the way, the book that you wrote. But the other thing that really seemed to work for me, and I didn't plan this, it's not as if I had some grand plan. I wasn't that forward thinking as a kid, but I really just leaned into doing what I did. I gathered pond water and put that in petri dishes and grew paramecium, and would look at my paramecium under the microscope, and the paramecium were my friends. I know that sounds weird, but I was a weird kid. I would grow mold under my bed. I had different mold cultures, but at least, the mold wouldn't bully me and wouldn't push me around and beat me up. I was bigger than the mold, and I really just leaned into what my interests were. And the point I like to make to our listeners is that was my place in the universe. That was how I found meaning. And strangely enough, I think that me really digging into what I was interested in, which was paramecium and mold and reading and science and microscopes, paired with somebody that showed me what was possible, is what got me to where I am. Because in basketball, I really sucked at basketball, and my coach told me that quite regularly, and yelled at me and grabbed me by the shirt collar and pecked on my chest with his long fingernails until my chest bled. That was legal back then. Be called abuse now, but it happened back then. But I never could get it. That just wasn't me. But as I tell other people, school, and tell me what you think about this, is kind of a potato chip factory. It's just built to make more potato chips. And since I didn't really fit into the potato chip factory, I was a terrible potato chip. This kid that grew mold under his bed, I didn't really fit in, and I wouldn't fit that pattern. But for those of you listening, and those of you that have kids, and you teenagers that might be listening, that's okay. and you have two guys here. One is a martial artist and fitness nut, and the other is just a nut. That would be me, but no, I'm into fitness also. Successful guys that we were in those shoes. We didn't fit well into that potato chip mold, but we leaned into our interest in what we did the best at and found that there's value in that in the world, and whatever your interests are, as long as they're healthy. I'm not talking about drugs or alcohol, but as long as your interests or criminal activity, but as long as your interests are healthy, then go for it. Lean into that. If that's paramecium and mold the way it was for me, then man, get you some petri dishes and a microscope and you might cure cancer. But you don't got to be just another potato chip. And I'm not, my family, my in-laws are teachers. I have great respect for the school system. But I think for kids like Andrew and I, they really miss it because it's not built to value differences. It wants everybody to be the same.
Absolutely. I think that that's a really good point. And one of the things I think that most of the young people that I talk to that are in school don't like, it's like when we study education, right? It came out of serfdom, slavery, sit down, shut up, work, don't move, basically don't be human. So we have to elevate our learning experience to be more humane, right? We wouldn't, like, just telling a 5-year-old kid to sit down all day and don't move. And if he does, you say he has, ADHD or whatever. You know what I mean? Like a young boy is not meant not to move all day. Think about it like, are we raising cows or are we raising lions? Humans are more like lions. We're not cows. So,
I love that. I have parents come to me and they say the same thing. They'll say, "Oh, my kid, I can't get them to sit down. They're jumping all over the place and they've got so much," they call it hyperactivity, not energy, but hyperactivity. And I'll say, I'm sorry, your child is 37. Oh, no. He's 6 or he's 7. Oh, I thought we were talking about a 37-year-old child. Well, for a 6 or 7-year-old, isn't that normal? It's normal. Kids
it is normal.
have
not only that, but
energy.
you need to work them out. Yeah, and you need to work them out. Like, not just like go to recess for 10 minutes. I mean, kids need to run around. I used to take my nephew out when he was young, and I'd work him out until he couldn't do it. He was like, I'm so tired. He'd go to sleep like that. He'd listen, he'd work. My dad used to do this to me when we were going to have a serious conversation. He'd be like, Andrew, go run around the block. They come back. No, go do it again. Like, until I could sit there and focus because I had so much energy. And I think that that's a big mistake that we're missing on our education. Education isn't just do math. Remember this. It's how do I be the best person I can be? Health, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in your relationships, in your family, your whole life has got to be considered. I talk to kids all the time, like, how much time did you spend on how to create a better friend, communication, raising kids, making food, taking care of your body, communication, whatever it may be. And they're like, I don't know. We had maybe a little bit of, that should be like a main thread throughout their entire educational system, so that by the time they graduate from high school, they know what makes a good friend. They know how to communicate and build relationships and take care of themselves and all the rest of the things. And I'm talking mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
It really all kind of goes together. Back in Athens, the famous philosophers, they would have the Dr. Spraggins from Lyon College, where I went, the Harvard of the South, would say the gymnasium, which we know as the gymnasium, and it was really active learning. At my time at the VA, I would have guys who would talk about their time in special forces, and they would work their minds at the same time they're working their bodies. It happened at the same time, but in school, we bifurcate that, and no, you've got to have class time, and then you've got to have gymnasium time. Hey, I got a better idea. Why don't we learn math while we're on the ball court shooting the basketball? For you clinicians out there listening, it should be no mystery to you why you have a hard time getting a 6 or 7-year-old or a 9 or 10 or 12-year-old to sit still in a chair for 50 freaking minutes of therapy. Don't do that. If it's a pretty day, go outside, shoot the basketball or throw the horseshoe or go for a jog or a walk or collecting rocks or butterflies while you're doing therapy. Guess what? Yes, it's still billable to insurance, unless you're worried about that, guys. Yes, as long as you're doing therapy, there's no insurance prohibition, if you are billing insurance for therapy, that you have to sit in a chair the entire time for therapy. Get out and do active therapy. You can do CBT, guys, cognitive behavioral therapy, while you're doing anything. I remember my one of the instructors, one of the professors in my PhD program, would tell stories about his PhD students in the 70s, and they would have PhD class in the pool. They would go find a pool and learn how to do psychology while they're in the swimming pool. One thing doesn't have to be different than the other thing. Be an active learner. And you seem like a very active guy. Tell us about all the activities you do, because you're a martial artist and a fitness nut. Tell us a little bit about that part of your life.
Okay. I just want to follow up on what you just said first, and then we'll get into that. I think what you said is really important. In the third book of The Way, I talk about this called the Child and Family Guide, and I talk about educating kids. And what you just said is so important, because the human mind isn't and the body aren't bifurcated. Like you said, we are one being. And if you work the mind and the body all day, you become a lot more intelligent, because we know the brain, once it's stimulated with blood flow and all the rest, actually works better. So by training kids on their body and their mind during schooling helps their emotional well-being too, because a lot of kids are frustrated and angry, and they don't know how to deal with it. And a lot of it becomes from not exercising enough, because as we know, it releases good chemicals in your body. It's a needed part of life. And I'm not talking like you have to go to the gym. What I've done is, in The Way, is created a way for all of us just to integrate these things into our normal life, so that it doesn't have to become this arduous, I have to go to the gym for 3 hours every day type of thing. It's better actually if you integrate smaller workouts throughout the day. And like you said, make yourself more active throughout your entire day. And as far as the things I do, I've tried just about everything you can imagine. I got into martial arts when I was young, been into philosophy, Eastern philosophy. So martial arts, yoga became part of my life. And through there, I was on basketball. I was also really, really bad. I was really bad at shooting because I had such a bad eye, but I was really pretty good at defense. I was a really highly energetic and could steal the ball and do that kind of stuff. I had to stop playing baseball when I was pretty young because I got hit in the face a couple of times, and I couldn't see the ball moving, that kind of thing. But I was on the rowing team in college. It was a crew. Basketball. Let's see, I've done triathlons. I swim. I ride. I run. Yogi, martial arts. I love doing different types of weapon training. So from nunchucks to swords to Kali sticks, you name it. So I think for me, the diversity of all these different things too is what makes, and swimming is one of the best things. I love doing that, and mixing them up in the right way can make you a healthier person. People that only do one exercise or don't have a good morning wake up routine where they warm up their body, or a cool down night routine. I know people that used to just get up and run, and then they end up with knee problems and hip problems and back problems because they haven't taken enough time to really make your body healthy. There's a difference between being fit and healthy and just looking good. Or, I was able to ride. I'm able to ride or run, this fast. It's like, is that all you do? Yes. Well, then you're probably going to have major problems later in life. It's our bodies aren't meant to do the same thing all the time. And with proper care, I always studied longevity. So you want to take care of your body in a way throughout your life so that when you get older, right, you're not totally broken and spending all your time in the hospital or not able to do things. You want to maintain your body throughout your life so that when you get older, they say, you age gracefully, and allows you to do more. I'd rather be hiking up that mountain when you're 90 than doing too much when you're young and then being broken by the time you're 70 and not be able to do anything. Make sense?
For those you watch, I just kind of popped up on our little almonds on the screen there. That's the flight almond. And I like to ask Andrew this question too, but part of the response that humans have when we're in a difficult situation that we view as a threat to us is we'll fight, freeze, or flee, fight, flight, freeze response. And that's not all a bad thing. If you're in a situation that's difficult, that's one of the values of exercise is cooling off those response mechanisms in the brain. And the reason this is an almond is the part of the brain that does that, the amygdala, is shaped like an almond. But what are, for a nerdy kid like me, if you were talking to me when I was 7 and I just want to be in a room with a door closed with my petri dish and my microscope, what's the value of finding some type of physical activity to do? What's the upside of that?
Sure. What I say is, first of all, I did this with my nephew. It's very much like that. He was very into sound and music and could sit there and listen to that stuff for all day long. And what I said to him was, look, this is the vehicle that you're using in this life. It's going to grow up and you're going to have to ride in it your whole life. And if you don't take care of it properly, it's going to break down and you're going to spend all of your time dealing with problems with your body instead of what you love to do. So the value of taking care of the vehicle, and again, if you do it right, it's not like you have to spend all day doing it. It's just integrating these best practices and ways of doing things into your life. And then you can, spend all day looking at mold if you want to. But at the same time, every hour and, every half hour, if you're a kid, get up and do something, move around, do some push-ups, do some sit-ups, and you're going to feel better. Your brain's going to be developed more. You're going to be stronger and smarter. And then when you get older, you're going to be even better than you are, right? And that's the whole goal. The whole idea of education is to make yourself a better and better person. So if you're not educating your body and your mind and your emotions and your spiritual self as you're developing, you're not going to do a good job and you're probably not going to make it. And that kind of scared me. Like, well, I want to do a good job in all of my life. So I'm like, okay, so we made a routine. We literally mapped out his day and talked about when he was going to work out and when he was going to do this and how he's going to get up and, all the little exercises he could do in his room when he's, listening to his music. I'm like, you can listen to music and you can dance, right? You know what I mean? Or you can get up. Most kids too, they get really energized by music. So you as a kid, what is your favorite type of music and what makes you move? You know what I mean? Like every kid will start to sway or do something to something they like. And once you find that little niche, you're like, okay, I'm just going to leave you here a minute by yourself alone in the room. We're going to turn up the music and you just go crazy. Do whatever you want to do. Nobody can see you. Just dance around. And then like if you peek in, sometimes he had a little friend, this little girl. She would go crazy. Like she loved I can't remember the name. It's like some type of pop, but it's really crazy music. Anyways, they would dance around. And so that became their little thing. So I think that's the idea, is to teach the kids that this is your vehicle. Taking care of it helps you do everything better in your life, right? But it also then prevents you from having so many problems. Like you do, just take a kid to the hospital with other kids. I used to go there. My sister had a lot of operations, almost died. I had eye issues and, and we hang around all these kids that had serious problems, deformities, burns, whatever it may be. And you just don't want to go there. You know what I mean? There's no kid that wants to spend their life in a hospital. So once they understand taking care of me makes me not have to go to the hospital, kind of instills this value. I don't know, does that all make sense?
Oh, I love all that. And what would could you maybe come up with you spoke of a morning routine, just a good, quick morning routine that you might recommend to yourself as a kid, or me, the nerdy microscope kid? Right. Or even that would work for an adult.
Yeah, basically I cover this in the way. It's step 5, and it's about customizing your day from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, because you want to optimize it in the sense that you're not necessarily going to be following a script every day, but you want to know if you're going to integrate best practices and these virtues into your life, you need to know what they are and how to do it. And so you have this little map. And I actually start from the moment you start gaining consciousness and all the things you do in the morning. So let's go through a couple of them. So the first time when you wake up, things you don't do is check your phone or do anything. You're going to slowly get into awakening. And if you start doing this, you'll find different levels of consciousness. There's a level of consciousness when you start waking up where your conscious mind is not aware of the world that you're living in. It's just you. And you can feel really who you are. And then when your mind awakens a little further, your whole consciousness of the reality that you're living in can come into play. And sometimes if you're able to play with that, you can feel like if you're having a wake up and it's a good feeling or not. And if you feel this crushing force of, worry and depression, whatever that then comes onto your mind, you kind of know where you are, and it will help you fix these things. So anyways, from that moment on, you're going to awaken in your bed. You're going to straighten yourself out a little bit, lengthen yourself, take some deep breaths, center your mind, right? And I go through litanies of things you can say, positive affirmations. And again, you're just trying to wake yourself up and stay focused and prime yourself for your day. So you do a little stretching in bed. And what I advise is you get right out of bed and you do a wake up warm up is what I call it. You can eat an apple. You drink a glass of water with, pure water with a little bit of minerals in it. Take some vitamins if you need them in the morning, whatever it may be. And you do this yoga. I have a certain type of yoga routine that I developed when I was injured. I was hit by cars numerous times in my life. And one time it left me unable to walk or stand up straight or anything for like 7-8 years. And so I'd crawl out of bed and I started to develop this yoga routine. And it's not only just made for back, but it's also a good way just to warm up your body. So you go through this. And again, I when I teach yoga, there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can do speed yoga, slow yoga, fast yoga, whatever it may be. This type of yoga is really just a warm up yoga. And you're drinking your water, you're meditating as you do this. And I have a whole meditation program I go through. And then after you're done doing the yoga, you do take a few more minutes. You do a solid meditation. I go through 5 different ways of meditating. And again, this whole idea is to get your mind, your body, your emotions, your spirit, your whole self focused, centered on what's happening in your day. And again, if you listen to what I said, what I did not say is you do not check your phone. You do not answer emails. You do not do any of that stuff. You as you have to be you. You know what I mean? You can't let yourself go out and start taking in other information that may distract you from yourself at this moment. Because it's like, I always equate a day to a life, right? Your little kid wakes up or is born, goes through his development, and by the end of the day, right, he's tired, he surrenders his consciousness. Same thing with us, right? Little kid grows up, adult, dies, So your day is kind of like this whole little mini life. So respect it and take that moment in the morning to set yourself up and focus yourself. Create a little happiness in your life. You know what I mean? Like do something fun at this moment too. So after you're warmed up, what is it you really like to do? You can listen to really good music when you're doing this. Build in some fun into your life. Gamification, I talk about that. So that's kind of a basic to the very beginning of the morning.
Now, by the way, I find a lot of people get freaked out about the meditation thing, and they make it harder than it is, and then they think they don't do it correctly, and then they beat themselves up over it.
No. I would love to talk about this for a second. I've been meditating like my whole life. And first of all, there are different ways to meditate. Okay. This first way that most people know about is just being present, focusing on your breathing, staying in the moment, right? That's one way. So there are 5 different ways. I wish, honestly, you've studied psychology. I have too. I wish that Freud and Jung met a Zen master and they got together. Seriously, dude, I wish they got together and Freud and Jung went through the whole Zen meditation thing. We would have a totally different Western mind. I swear, after studying so much psychology, I think Freud did us a huge disservice by making it seem like we're multi-schizophrenic beings all competing with ourselves, and we have to, get to know our dark side, spend time with our ego is trying to overwhelm. The Zen master is like one mind, whole mind, stop.
For full show notes and transcript of today's episode, go to therapybites.podbean.com.
Individual psychological concepts are very different animals from one another. And while they are often readily observable in the wild, The TherapyBites Art Lab Zoo affords us a unique opportunity to study them in a safe and controlled environment. Welcome to the TherapyBites Art Lab Creature Feature. Oh, good heavens!
Oh my goodness. Maybe I shouldn't be doing the creature feature today. I am so anxious right now. Like my ears are ringing and my stomach feels upset and I feel all shaky all over the place. And I don't know, man, the more I think about this anxiety, the more it intensifies and I don't know what to do about it. Hey T-Ball team, welcome to this episode's creature feature. Have you been there long? Anyways, welcome to this episode's creature feature. I am your host, Safari Sarah, and I am calling in from this rainforest, and I am on the hunt for a fish. A gray herring, to be specific. And those of you who are unfamiliar with the art lab and our terminology, a gray herring is what we refer to as something that distracts us from what is actually going on, what is really important. So, for example, in the way that I was talking before, we would consider that an anxiety gray herring. Now that anxiety is distracting me from what's actually going on, which is my thoughts. So if I were to think about, okay, what am I telling myself about this creature feature? Maybe I am thinking, well, what if it isn't good enough? Well, what if I don't pronounce words correctly? What if I don't say the things right? What if I do like what I just did and I mess up what I'm saying? Okay, so if that does happen, first of all, I don't know if that's going to happen. Is it going to ruin what I'm doing? No, absolutely not. It can be a wonderful teaching moment. So when you notice that you have some anxiety, don't focus on the anxiety, dear listener. Focus on your thoughts. Those are what's important. And use Artie's accurate, realistic thoughts to help you get through the day. Thank you so much for joining me on this creature feature, T-Ballers, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. That went a lot better than I thought it was going to go.
Thank you for joining us for the TherapyBites Art Lab Creature Feature.
You're listening to TherapyBites Art Lab, bite-sized therapy for your brain with Dr. Heath and the T-Ball team. The best advice on the net. No copay required.
You're slipping beneath the cushions of your bobble-headed psychotherapist's couch, leaving behind empty, echoing, cushy, comforting, pseudo-psychological claptrap, moving into a deeper dimension of your own mind, where distorted thinking, hurting, hopelessness, and regret evaporate into clarity, healing, renewed hope, and newfound resilience. That's the podcast sign up ahead. Your next stop, TherapyBites Psych Secrets.
Hey T-Ballers, Doc Heath here in Psychotherapy Duck in Disguise to share with you some reasons hard things are brain healthy. Quack, quack, listen up here. Neurologically, hard things acclimate your brain to difficulty. Number 2, physiologically, they normalize internal physical processes and reduce amygdala, that's your fight or flight system, reduce amygdala activation. And number 3, cognitively, they allow you to program your thoughts away from pseudo-threat quicksand. T-Ballers, listen to your psych secret for this episode. Give your brain hard things to do. It'll be healthier because of it and more resilient because of it. Doc Heath and Psychotherapy Duck out. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Once again, Doc Heath rips the cushions from the couch, dishes the dirt, lets the cat out of the bag, uncorks the bottle, letting the genie escape, and blows the lid off of another of the universe's psych secrets.
Show your T-Ball team spirit and buy your hardworking Art Lab team a cup of coffee, which helps fuel purchases of high-octane equipment and T-Ball tech that get poured back into percolating, highly caffeinated content for you. Just go to buymeacoffee.com and search Therapy Bites.
Here's Heath and the T-Ball team.
I'll just tell you this one experience I had. I was in college. I was at a Zen retreat. It was, I don't remember how long, a week or something, and there was no talking. All we did is meditate, eat, and listen to the masters give us little discussions on things. And they would ask us questions, and we wouldn't talk. The third day is when my mind stopped. And when I say this, it's like, and this is a typical experience with Zen meditation. This is the clearing, the stopping, the surrendering, and letting it all stop. It's not force, right? You're not forcing your mind, controlling it to stop. You're surrendering and letting it all go, and then it just peace. And when I say surrendering, like it's just, and it opens you up to so much more. That idea of, like, most people I talk to, their minds run like TV sets. Their stations changing all the time. They're kind of at the whim of whatever. This idea of learning how to clear your mind, focus your mind, take control of your mind is key to life. And this idea of meditation, I think in the West has become a little, I don't know, it's not really understood as well as it should be. And even in the East, like this idea of meditation, the 5 different ways and how to use it as a tool, not so much as a spiritual thing, because it's really just, what do I say? It's like we can eat certain ways, you know what I mean? You can exercise in certain ways and watch how your arms move when you run. And the same thing with your mind. You can train your mind to have absolute control over it, to connect your subconscious with your conscious mind and get you all on the same plane, moving in the same direction and all of that. It takes work, it takes time, but once you do it, it is the best way, I think, for humanity to kind of evolve, because without our minds working for us, you know, like you said, everything becomes a fight. You know, like you said, oh, I don't know if I'm doing this right. It's just beating yourself up all the time, negative thinking, depression, suicidal thoughts. I have a video on how to overcome that. That's also in the book. You know, how to overcome addiction. All of these pieces that it takes to be human. What I found is, and the only reason I'm out here, just, you know, when I wrote a book and all this, a dyslexic guy writing a book, it took me 30 years of research and development, 5 years to actually get the book out. The only reason I'm doing it is because I kept sharing solutions that I found with people, doctors like yourself and others. Like, absolutely, that's right. That does help. That people need to hear that. What I have found is that most of the human race that I've talked to seems to feel like the human race and our world are doomed. Like, if we do not do something soon, things are going to get worse and worse and worse. And we keep doing the same things that have been done. As we know, that's insanity. We're not going to get anywhere. So what is this new way? How do we become better people? We need to create a better world. We can't create a better world unless we create better people, because the world's a reflection of us. So how do we get the human race on the same page regarding some basics, you know, some of the foundations of life? And what I found is, if you don't, like you said, if you don't cover all of them, this missing piece is what comes and destroys us. So what I'm out here doing is spreading the word, right? The word of the way and the one. And the idea is to get us all on the same page regarding the foundations of life and how we can be our best, teaching this, integrating it into our society, into our organizations, our governments, our businesses, and everything else. And once these ideas are understood and believed, they will change the world. I have had people tell me this. And again, this isn't just me saying this. I'm not some Pollyanna pie in the sky guy. This is like literal, you know, 1, 2, 3, follow this and you will become a better person. So anyways, I don't know if that makes much sense.
Well, it does. And I want to say, it occurs to me that as a human species, we're so busy engineering fixes on the outside. We have cell phones and smart cars, and we have rocket ships, and we're engineering these things on the outside, that we don't take time to engineer things on the inside, the vault of our skulls, to improve our lives. And guys listening, folks listening, your iPhone is not going to fix your life. Your smart car, your smart home, your smart TV, none of that's going to fix your life. Your life can only be fixed from the inside out, not the outside in. And the thing about meditation I found is it really requires non-expectation and non-judgment, and just simply making an appointment with yourself, which is what I do. I make an appointment with myself, and I just keep my appointment. What happens, happens. I have monkey mind, like everybody else, and my brain is literally crawling across the, I guess not literally, but figuratively, crawling on the walls of the inside of the vault of my skull. It's, leaping from corner to corner and chandelier or light bulb to light bulb in my brain, and that's okay. I bring my attention back to my breath, and my brain goes over here, squirrel, and that's okay. I bring my attention back to my breath. My brain is the train. My breath is the track. My breath keeps my brain on track. You guys can steal that listening. My brain is the train. My breath is the track. My breath keeps my brain on track. It's non-judgment. I'm not there to accomplish something. I'm not there to make something stop. I'm not there to get something I want. I am simply there as a observer. And the more I just non-judgmentally observe what my brain is doing, the more my brain can relax. And meditation isn't, you just kind of, I think, have to create a space for it by making that appointment, and then you show up for the appointment. I do the same thing on my morning run and my workout. I just make an appointment with myself and I show up. What happens, happens.
With meditation too, I talk about mini workouts and mini meditations. You can have, once you meditate and you find that center and you're still there for a while, you can remember that place. You can go back there in just a moment meditation throughout your day, help center yourself. I actually have, I call it the meditation sheet. It's on the website. It's free. It's part of the book. And the 5 ways to meditate I have are mindfulness, control, clearing, focused, and visualization. And each one of those has a different place in your mind to assert control. And once you learn how to visualize and do different things and take control of your mind by letting go as well as focusing it in certain ways, it will allow you to then gain skills in other areas of your mind throughout your day. So for me,
I think we would be in agreement that you can meditatively engage in most any activity.
Absolutely. One of the ideas in Eastern philosophy is that you kind of reach the state of enlightenment, right? And this idea of enlightenment is that you're in this living, flowing meditation state. One of the things I learned, the reason they combine meditation, the mind and the body in the East, in the martial arts, it's very philosophical, it's very physical, and it's not really about violence. Just, I know there's a lot of violence in there, but what I found is it's completely the opposite. I've talked to enough dancers and other sports people to know that there is and even actors or whoever gets really into what they're doing, even you, when you're a doctor, I'm sure there's been hours where you look up, you're like working on something, you look up and you're like, wow, 4 hours just went by and I was so into this.
Yeah, only every day.
Yeah, so this idea of becoming one with your movement, with what you're doing, is kind of key to life. So if you're able to integrate the ideas of being a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual being, right, into everything that you're doing, then everything that you're doing becomes a little different because you've got to take care of your body. So if let's say you're working at a desk all the time and you're hunched over and you're sitting there, you're going to end up with bad neck, a bad back, and, a carpal tunnel and all these things. So you have to, in your mind, go, okay, how do I work and not destroy myself at the same time? Right? So what I did is I actually created a desk where I got recliner. I have the monitor on a big arm like you see in the hospital. I recline. I have the keyboard on a little on my seat, and I have the mouse there, so my back is not in an L position. I had to do that because I was in so many car accidents. I really can't sit that way very much. But I also, when I studied the back, sitting in an L position damages your back. And that's where we're not really told that. So you should only do that short amount of time. The problem is we start making our kids do it from when they're, first day in school, sit and don't move for 8 hours a day. By the time they're in college or graduating high school, every kid I talk to has back problems and neck problems and, pains and things because they're carrying around these huge backpacks and everything else that they shouldn't be doing, right? And very, very few humans nowadays, too. I talk to people all the time. How many times a day do you hang upside down or hang by your hands? Nobody. It's like very few. I talk to people like you could be out 1 out of 100 people. I'm like, your spine, the compression on your spine, just due to gravity, is going to hurt you if you are not lengthening your body actively every day. So having an inversion table, when you do your stretching at night and in the morning, you're lengthening yourself out as long as you can be, compacting your vertebrae. And think about your neck, just carrying around a huge bowling ball on top of this little, compression. You need to be able to release that.
A bowling ball bowling ball for a head. It sounds like you've talked to my wife.
I have a few girlfriends. No, my sister, funny. She used to say, like, when I was a kid, we'd sit in the car and I'd fall asleep on her. She'd, get your boulder head off of me. So,
but you make a good point. Our bodies are made for movement. Our bodies are made for flexibility. We need to exercise that flexibility. It is a terrible idea to sit or stand in a fixed position for really elongated periods of time. And there is a unity between the mind and the body. It's really, well, as you mentioned earlier, it's really not as differentiated as we think. It's a constant union, communication between the two, and it's a mistake to separate them.
And once you get to this level, though, you'll find a connection. That's where, like with the martial arts, you do this kata. You do it over and over again. And you're not doing it over and over again because that's the way you want to move. You're doing it so you can become one of mind and body. And you reach this state where it's amazing. I don't even know how to describe it to you. It's like a flow of energy in your body and your mind, and it feels so good. Like when you're doing a spinning kick and you land it perfectly and you flow right into the next move and there's no hitch, there's nothing. It's like a dancer. Like I said, I've dated enough dancers and I had the same conversation. They feel the exact same thing. It's this mind-body connection that brings this spiritual element into it and emotional, because the feeling that you're getting when this is happening is like, how do I say this? It's like so positive that it transcends normal life. I've even had the same experience when I've been gardening in nature. I'm really into plants and things, and you get the same oneness feeling if you're doing something. So this idea and taking that into your complete, or into every aspect of your life. It's like I talk about the art of life. How do you go, a human being is like a building, right? We can build a square, squat, gray, ugly building, or we can create a wonderful work of art that inspires everybody, right? We're like that. How do you make yourself into a living work of art? And most people don't know how to do that. So with the right knowledge and the right efforts, you can literally change yourself. Because let me say this, most people don't even know this when I talk to them, that it takes about 90 days to develop a habit. So if you're integrating, right, best practices and virtues around these key areas of your life in every 90-day cycle, you will become a better and better person. That's literally how you do it. And it should make sense that that's how it works.
Well, I'm gonna say, since Andrew opened the door, I'm gonna say some weird stuff, and I've never thought of it in this way. But I'm gonna grab my coffee cup here. But I am so in tune with what he just said, and some of you have know me as being famous for my morning lattes, which I have a very peculiar way of making that. I set out my ingredients the night before. And it's a combination of turmeric. It's a measured tablespoon, by the way. It's a half a capsule of bioperine black pepper extract to help my body absorb the turmeric. It's a teaspoon of gelatinized a combination of red maca and black maca. Good for growing boys and girls. And gosh, what else? A teaspoon of mushroom extract, 7 sacred mushrooms, and that's my latte. My point is, I've never thought about. I do it mindfully. Okay, it is a mindful exercise for me, but it dawns on me that it's also a kata, because it is the same movement, and I hate to sound weird. Actually, I don't hate to sound weird. I get into being weird, but it's really just a flow, a kata of doing the same thing every morning that gets my day going. In the evenings, and this is a tip for your husbands, putting the dirty dishes in the dishwasher has become a kata for me. As I'm making my latte, emptying the dishwasher in the mornings have become a kata. And I mean, here's the weird part, down to where I put my feet. I know I can put my left foot here and then swivel this way, and I'm at the cabinet where I put the cup that I used the night before that came out of the dishwasher. It is a kata. I love looking at it that way.
Let me just expound on that, because you mentioned a couple of things that are really key. I lived in Japan for a while. I don't know if you mentioned that, but I had some great teachers there, and I don't know if you know the Japanese tea ceremony.
Yes.
You know what that is about? Okay. So they serve tea in a very special way. And when I talked to my translator, so I'm there and she's explaining this to me, that it is like a martial, like they have these arts in Japan. It's not just martial arts. It's all these different arts. Like, the tea ceremony is one. They have flower arranging, so it's like they try to incorporate the idea of this art into everything they do. And she's explaining the tea ceremony to me, and it all has its very precise, exact movements. And then she went on to say, it's not just the tea and what we're doing here. It's the workers, their lives, the energy that goes into making a tea, how they process the tea. Everything that happens in this whole arena is what matters. And I think that's the missing piece in our humanity, is that we see like business is separate, government is separate, everything's separate. These systems of our society are reflections of us. If we're confused and messed up and corrupted, they are, right? The better people we become, the better our systems can become. And that's what you were talking about, is, making a better world starts from within us, becoming better people. And this idea of the bifurcated world, self-separation, leave your problems at the door when you come to work. It's just business. Greed is good, whatever. All these negatives, this is what we need to change. And what I've found is, I call them the doomers. We're all doomers. We see the world is pretty much doomed, and the human race, if we do not make some big changes. But the saving grace there is, you cannot fix any wrongness unless you can see it. Right? So we have so many people in the world awake right now than have ever been awake at the same time. And I say that in a positive way, like we can see the wrongness. The problem is that we don't have a hope, right? There's like, where is the solution? And that's what I'm trying to share, is that there are solutions out there, kind of like mined the greatest minds of the world for all of humanity and took all those golden threads and universal truths and put them in one book. Because one of the things that really frustrated me going through this journey was, I found so many truths, so many golden threads in so many different areas, thousands and thousands of books. Listen to, like, I couldn't read like you could, so I listen to books. Thank God for the Braille and handicap books on tape. But, it's like,
Hey guys, reading is reading. It doesn't matter if you're reading characters off a page or whether you're listening to sound waves through a headset. Reading is reading.
Well, yeah. And listening is an awesome skill. It's natural too, especially for a kid. Like if you can't see, you really have no option. It was so hard for me to read my book.
Well, listening,
not to
get off subject, but listening, guys, is an older skill than reading.
Yeah. And it's a really great, if you listen to books a lot, you develop that skill, and you can go really far with that. I forgot what my point was. But, the whole idea here is that we're trying to create a better world and become better people. And people keep telling us, like, it's so complicated. Oh, that, finding all these golden threads and things in all these millions of different places. And I'm sure you like this. It's like, oh, I'm 40 years old. I just learned something I wish I knew when I was a kid. I hear this all the time. And then when all these old people are like, yeah, I got to tell all these young kids. The problem is that it's like, for me, it's not just one thing that makes a difference, because if you're missing this other critical piece to your mind or your body or whatever, it doesn't matter. That will come back and ruin you, right? Like, seriously, destroy your life. Wow, I didn't know how to care for my relationship with my wife. Now I'm divorced and my kids hate me and I'm alone and I'm sad and I'm miserable. It's like, if you just knew the skills, you know what I mean? You wouldn't be in this place. So what I'm trying to say is, like, look, we need to all understand these basic skills. I'm not talking about every possible thing that happens in your life. I'm talking about the fundamentals of what makes your mind, your body, your emotions, your spirit, your friendships, your relationships, your finances, all these things kind of up to par. You know what I mean? And once all they are up to par, you're going to become a better person. Once you're a better person, all these other pieces are going to fit and, fall into place a lot easier. And if we're all doing this is how we create harmony. We talk about energy a lot. We're energy beings, right? We are literally, like, if you break us down to the smallest parts, we're mostly free space. Like 95% of atoms and everything is free space. So we're really just energy fields on this planet. We're flying through space at like 1,000,000 miles an hour if you add up all the different motions that are going on to us. So if we're going to create a better world as energy beings, we need to create better frequencies, more harmony. You know what I'm saying? As we're doing all of these positive things in the world and we're becoming more positive people, we're going to create more synergistic, there's another word I was trying to remember, they're going to help us. You know what I mean? It's like, if you put two positives together, 5 positives, 100 positives, 1,000 positives, it can create something much greater than the sum of its parts. And that's how we're going to create a better world. Like you mentioned earlier, technologically, we're very advanced, right? We just discovered fusion. Which could save the world. If we could lower the cost of all the basics of energy and food and water and all of this and make it, just very, I don't know, what's the word? Like, if it doesn't really affect us much, we can go a lot further. So, but if we don't take care of our minds and the rest of our lives to make it better, we're just going to go down some hellish techno world. You know what I mean? Like, if we're disconnected from nature, we don't find out what it really means to be human and develop our humane side and creating a gamified, beautiful, wonderful society to live in, then what's the point? You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, technological toys are great, but life is not about the technological toys. And if you spend more time with your thoughts, focus more on your thoughts, spend more time with your thoughts, the more time you spend with your thoughts, the more those thoughts can become stepping stones to success. And a great way to do that Andrew's talked about today is through connecting mind and body. And just a quick tip, guys, educationally, if you're struggling to learn something that's difficult, the best time to do it is when you're moving your body. Take Andrew's advice, see if you can get a book on, well, I keep on saying tape because early in my day, they literally were on cassette tapes. And then they got put on CDs, and now, of course, it's just all electronic. But get an audio book. Your local library probably has the Libby app, Libby, or Audible, and listen to that information while you're exercising.
Absolutely.
While you're moving your body.
All the time.
It opens up. It's like a key in a lock that opens up the ability to learn, assimilate, encode the information.
I just remember 2 things I really want to say. One is, when you're doing that routine in the morning or evening, I want you to think about not just placing your feet in the same place. I always try to get a workout in while you're doing this. Try to stand on one foot while you're emptying the dishwasher. You know what I mean? Like, put one hand up in the air and stretch out while you're doing it. Do different movements. The kata thing in Japan, it was funny because when I was fighting in people that did katas a lot, especially when they're young and they're first learning them, pretty much what their next move is going to be if they're following the kata string. So a lot of times that may get you in trouble. And what I always find too is it's that free form when you're walking down the hallway. Walk down the hallway, walk back. I do this 10 times a day, 20 times a day. How about doing some side motion? Walk backwards, do some squats as you're walking. You can do all sorts of things I call them transitional moments, or when you're doing tasks. Listening to books, I call this stacking. It's like anything that you do that's a chore, cleaning, running errands, driving in the car, whatever it may be, you can stack on breathing exercises, listening to books, mini meditations. You can always do something to kind of better yourself in a lot of these moments. So you're at work and you're like, oh, it's just a big drag. it's not necessarily. You can not only make money doing what you're doing, but then you can also train your mind and your body as you're working, depending on what you're doing. Obviously, it
Well,
would
sure,
depend,
because it doesn't matter what you're doing. The brain is always listening. Now, there are some things that you need to turn stuff off. If you're going to talk to your kid, if you're going to talk to a good friend, you're going to talk to a loved one, your spouse, the most powerful button during any of those interactions, guys, is the off button. Hit the freaking off button. Focus, focus, focus. But in the evening when I'm loading the dishwasher and getting my supplement array, I'm a big supplement guy, ready for the next day, I start out listening to Father Mike Schmidt's Through the Bible in a Year. And I listened to the day's episode for that. And then I listened to another book on audio that I found valuable. I may listen to Andrew's next if it's available. But I'm multitasking in a healthy way, and my brain absorbs that information. Just to kind of cap off what we talked about today, guys, we've talked about how adversity does not have to be a barricade to success. Some best routes to success. How to fail forward when you're going through tough stuff. Keep moving, and then you can find ways to turn those messes into very meaningful experiences. Andrew, before I let you go today, we have a couple more things to do, and I'm going to ask you, what would you say, and I'll give you a moment to think about this while I'm reading some contact Andrew information. What would you pick out as your favorite secret adversity hack? And while Andrew's thinking about that, guys, you can reach Andrew at 7way, that's the numeral 7, W-A-Y, 7way.me, 7way.me. And I'm going to put the link in the show notes. All you got to do is go to Apple or Spotify, and it's going to be right there in the show notes. That's the hub for everything related to Andrew Calderella, including The Way, the Seventh Foundation, and the One Movement is on the website, 7way Me. Just click the link. And also, guess what? You can claim some free gifts that will help you further your journey in life past the adversity you may be experiencing. Back to Andrew. What is your favorite top secret adversity hack?
T-ballers, time to quit your lollygagging. Get out of the dugout, onto the field, and live the art life.
My top secret, I don't think it's top secret, I'm actually trying to advocate this for everybody, is no matter what's happening in your life, is to keep the foundations going. So as part of the way, and this is part of the free gifts, you get the meditation sheet, but there's also a daily way guide that you're going to map out. You know, if you're depressed, if you're going through something really traumatic, it's keeping that basics done every day that will allow you to get through this in an okay way. Meaning, let's say somebody dies or something really traumatic happens to you. You don't want to just fold and start drinking every day and not sleeping properly. And it's just going to make everything worse. You could, if you start using drugs because of it, you know what I mean? Like that is not the way. The way is, when you're going through these things, is to try to keep the basics, brushing your teeth, eating properly, sleeping properly. And, you know, as time passes and you keep doing the basics, you can add on some more good things and you will get through it. As time passes is how, you either take steps during that time to make yourself good, or you're going to be, if you're doing the opposite, making yourself worse. So what I'm saying is, when the adversity happens and you're going through it, see it as a challenge for you to stay on the good path and try to get through it stronger. And honestly, if you do that and you keep committing, you know, I talk about these virtues like being dedicated and disciplined. These virtues are how you attain those virtues is by living this life. So that's my greatest advice. I also want to say that I know that not everybody can read a book. The audio book isn't out yet, but you can get your book reader, if you get it in electronic, to read it to you. I don't know if you knew that, but there's Kindle Reader. You can read the book, but it can also read it to you. There's other ones that do that.
I love using that. When I find a book that's not on audio, it's simple. It's on put it on my phone, and it has some glitches, but it's getting better. I fully support that.
I will get that out. I'm just starting out. I'm trying to do this myself. The other thing I want to say is I have what I call Life Essentials Masterclass that is going to be released shortly, and it covers not the entire way, obviously, but a lot of the foundational ideas. And it starts off with, what is the meaning of life? What is the true goal of life? The rules to life, how to attain the true goal of life, and go through the 7 steps and all sorts of great stuff. And for me, it seems like if we're going to get the human race on the same page regarding, the basics of life, there may be different ways to say it, but there's certain ideas that we need to all understand if we're really going to make it. It's like, you need to understand 2 + 2 = 4 if we're going to be doing high math, right? As a scientist. The same thing here is like, we can't be solving these major issues in our society if we don't even understand what it is to be human, what the true goal of life is, how the rules to life are directing us, what the purpose of our society is, and all the rest of these pieces. So that's what this masterclass is designed to do, is try to get us all on the same page and start it down this path so we can create a firm foundation to stand upon to build this better world that we all are wanting. And I just want to leave this one more message here, a message of hope that, again, if you can see the wrongness, you are on the right page, because to fix it, we have to start there. We have to be able to see it. And so many of us can, but we're more connected. We have more resources, more wealth, more ability to do things than ever before. So while it's horror, the human race needs to be burned to learn sometimes. And we've been burned to learn. I mean, we have burned and we have learned, and we are awake now. So let's join together within the one, call it the one tribe, the one movement, one party, to make these changes in the world. So, get the knowledge within the way, and let's join together and make these great changes happen. It's not as hard as everybody makes it out to be. I know it sounds big, but big things can happen, especially nowadays. So hopefully that makes sense.
I completely agree. Thank you so much. We have one more question to go.
We journey now with Doc Heath as he submerges with our special guest into the depths beneath the dark recesses of the therapy couch.
And okay. Andrew, here is your Doc Heath question for the day. Imagine that you're dreaming of your current biggest struggle, or it could be a big struggle that you think could happen. You're just hoping it doesn't. What's the struggle, and what would be your first step to tackling that struggle?
I'm going through it right now. I've been working on getting this masterclass done for at least a year. It's been a huge struggle, and my solution to it is just to keep working on it. You have to do it in balance, obviously, and we have long projects that take massive amounts of hours. You can't just leave everything else in your life aside, so you need to keep the balance. So my biggest thing is I always tackle the biggest problems first. Like if I know I have a big show or a big project coming up, I'll outline it. I'll just get started. Little steps over a long period of time can get really big things done. And that's one of those other keys to time that matter, stacking things onto each other, but getting started now, and just, I don't care what it is. It's like, you can just write the title of the page, and come back to it, write down some ideas and ideas and ideas. And that's honestly how the way was done. I collected millions of little notes over 30 years and kept putting them together, and, just kept working on it and working on it and working on it. So never give up, and take baby steps. Don't wait for that someday and that big step you're going to take when this happens or that happens. Do it now.
Great. I love that. And since this is TherapyBites Art Lab, guys, take it one small bite at a time. Andrew, thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it. Thank you, T-Ballers, for being here. Catch us on the next great episode. We'll see you then. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Welcome to On the Couch and Off Our Rocker with Dr. Ima Freudnot, where we review our special guest's TherapyBites Art Lab episode, Psychomolarchy Scale Assessment Results. That's PMS for short.
Andrew Calderella's PMS performance places him in the 94th percentile on the PMS's LHS, Life Hurdle Scale. This indicates a markedly high degree of resilience in Calderella's cortical crevices und a terrifying tendency toward indomitable tenacity. Overall, Andrew Calderella's PMS psychosillymetric assessment results present a picture of an individual dangerously apt at overcoming adversity, but who tames these torrential implicit temerity impulses by converting challenges into stepping stones. This supernatural soul likely has a promising prognosis of elevating others in the near future, until these energetically enterprising features of his psyche have been psychomologically analyzed and exercised. It is my considered conclusion that Andrew Calderella be prescribed no less than 823 milligrams IS intracellular dose of overcomitol and a 2300 milligram IT intratonsillar dose of northostatin to curtail compassitis-related cognitions. Dr. Ima Freudnot, Chief Shrinkstigator, TherapyBites A.R.T Lab.
Grab some of this episode's guest merchandise, specially designed to help keep this episode's message top of mind in your life. Don't forget friends and family members who could use an Art Lab mental boost too. Just go to therapybites.myshopify.com.
Hey, T-Ballers. Thanks so much for being with us today. If we brought value to your day, show us some love by leaving your positive feedback and inviting some friends to listen in and join the T-Ball team.
Government legal gobbledygook. Not intended as a diagnostic or as an alternative to professional clinical treatment. Resources and advice are for information and entertainment purposes only. Brought to you by... Someone saying things you don't like? Tape that nagging loudmouth shut. Government-approved speech tape. Gas tape. Now available at your local hardware store. TherapyBites A.R.T Lab is not an approved, endorsed, authorized, butt-kissing affiliate of the United States Special Offense Assessment Police. SOAP Police for short. Warning. Consumption of TherapyBites A.R.T Lab content by Kool-Aid drinking, stinking, thinking, social media, pseudo-psychological pushing, wacky woke, anti-free speech, mumbo-jumbo advocates may cause spontaneous internal skull combustion, stomach discomfort, and or laxative effects. Allergy warning. TherapyBites is manufactured in a facility that challenges nutty distortions, processes nuggets of accurate, realistic thinking, and life-affirming beliefs. This is the audio version of the legal fine print. Why are you still listening to this when you can catch the next great episode of TherapyBites A.R.T Lab with a good friend or family member? Really? Are you still there? This is getting silly. Move on to the next psychologically thrilling episode of the best advice on the net. No copay required.
Me eat copay.
Yeah, with Dr. Heath and the T-Ball team. Go ahead, don't be podgorophobic. Scoot, scoot, scoot. On to the next episode.